Newsflash, apartments are getting smaller. Definitely for a previous client of mine who was a single dad starting out on his own again, moving into a modestly sized 2-bedroom apartment, but he wasn't contacting me for the whole thing. So he just really wanted some help cracking the main living space, which was about a 4.7 meter square box that had a 2.7 meter long kitchen run shoved in the corner a bit that consisted of, a sink, dishwasher, fridge, and just enough cabinetry to kind of get by on with all your kitchen supplies and household supplies. He knew he wanted a comfy space to kind of hang out in and chill out, but when it came to kind of watching movies, he was happy to kind of do that in his own bedroom. So TV, remarkably, wasn't really high on his list of priorities. However, he would like to have a TV in the space just to have on, or if he wanted to watch something, or his son wanted to watch something and he was watching something else, or what have you, that could happen in the space. Well, that's sensible, isn't it, Sierra? So for this episode, I'm going to break out how I approach this client from a process standpoint to some of the solutions that I've designed. And this episode is definitely work in progress. We're hoping to hear from him soon on kind of how things are going and to be able to kind of get in and shoot the final space. But until that happens, we just wanted to give you a status update on this project and how it's going. Ready? Let's go. So the first meeting with the client, I really just kind of wanted to get a sense for the space and just have a discussion on things that appealed to him and what he was trying to do. The first thing that I really wanted to do was to crack the layout, including the sizes of furniture that he wanted in the space, as well as kind of how big he wanted an additional kitchen bench, which we talked about in our initial meeting. So having an additional kind of kitchen bench to what's already there to give him a bit more space for food prep, hanging out, having a cup of coffee, whatever. Also being able to have enough room for traffic around that new kitchen bench, around kind of any furniture we have in the living space, because he had kind of a huge, basically the whole wall on the one side of his apartment was a big glass sliding door out onto kind of a somewhat large balcony. So being able to kind of access that space from different parts of the apartment and not kind of block off that entrance too much. And by nailing the layout first, then I could really kind of reduce the time I would be spending giving him a lot of options, because I would know, okay, we want a 3-seater sofa of this dimension, we want a chair of this dimension, but we don't want kind of 2 chairs or whatever. So saves me time and also kind of saves him the struggle of kind of choosing from a raft of different options. So I put together a few layouts just to help him understand kind of what we could do with that space, because once we kind of add on the kitchen bench and leave room for traffic, it really forces just a handful of layouts. So we can either have a more symmetrical kind of layout, so with a sofa flanked by a couple of chairs. This is a bit more formal. It also is a bit reminiscent of, like a waiting area. So it's not very exciting, but I wanted just to kind of put it out there to see kind of what his interests were, because I'm not him, so I'm designing for somebody else, as well as a more asymmetrical layout, which was kind of my favorite. So having kind of the largest sofa as possible, and then on the other wall having a space for a little kind of lounge chair, or a largest kind of lounge chair with perhaps an ottoman if it fit, and then a smallish kind of occasional chair. In between those 2 chairs would be kind of a smallish table. And then above that would be an idea that I had, was that, there are all these new TVs coming out that when it's off, it looks like a piece of art, or you could get one that kind of turns into a mirror as well. So having that as a couple options, so depending upon what he was looking to do and also kind of where his style was going, we could either have either one of those, which he really loved that idea. Regarding the style of the new kind of pad, he had sent me kind of an unusual thing for somebody to send, but really cool. A brief that he sent to an artist that he wanted to have commission a piece of art for the space, which I was like, that's pretty cool. So, and in that brief were, well, kind of the style of the artist. Whoa, that's bold. Not my bag, but Hey, who am I? So that kind of gave me a sense of lines and shapes and things that appealed to him, as well as a color palette, as well as he had thrown in a few images of just places that were decorated in a specific way. So kind of an eclectic mix of furnishings, some bright pops of color, but just kind of whitewashed walls to make kind of a clean, kind of modern look. So I wanted to kind of build on that and also kind of push his boundaries a bit just to understand how we can define the different spaces within the one space. So one space being, of course, the main living area, and the other space being the little kitchen nook. Because I did want to help define those spaces to make the space feel a bit bigger because it was serving more than just one function. I took him two different directions from a design perspective. The first direction I took him because I know that he wanted color in the space, but I think it was just a matter of kind of how we put color in the space. So the first one was about let's put color actually on the walls, so using color to define the kitchen zone. The second option was more of a monochromatic option where the walls would be left more monochromatic, so the kitchen would go dark instead, which would also make the environment a bit more masculine and a bit more kind of den-like. And then in the second option, we would be kind of bringing color into the space through the furniture or through the artwork. Whereas in the first option, we'd have more kind of black and white, like perhaps a black and white rug or, you know, black and white artwork, etc., to help the color on the walls kind of sing. Also within these two options, showcasing just a range of furnishings, and then added on to that having some other options that during my own kind of exploration I kind of tagged as being kind of potentials to kind of throw in kind of these two recommended directions. So it's not only him reaction to these two directions, but he sees some options for things. So he can see how I'm kind of organizing things into an environment, especially when it's a more eclectic style. That way I have a really strong understanding walking out of that first meeting what really appeals to him and why. And also that means that potentially I could walk out of that first meeting having solved all the problems with only a short kind of shopping list to kind of take care of. So it helps me to get to know him, it helps him to get to know kind of me and the process he's going through, and kind of eases his mind on, oh, thank God I don't need to like go shopping for all these things, like Scott's gonna help me do that.
I bloody hate shopping for furniture. Ah, don't you, Sierra? Mwah.
He liked the first option that had the green and the orange in the kitchen, which is great, because that was kind of my favorite as well. He also liked kind of the hex tables, the coffee tables. He really liked those. I like them because it is a smaller space, those were also a good size, and he could kind of move them around should he have people over and wanting to give different people, you know, a place to set a drink or move them out of the way or whatever. He also liked kind of the odd shaped floor lamp on the second direction a lot, which I thought was really cool too, you know, something kind of unusual that could sit kind of at the end of the sofa.
Looks like a giant cotton swab, mate.
And he did like the idea of a reading nook or having this largish lounge chair, though he wasn't sure about the different options that I gave him for that, so I wanted to do a bit more homework on that for him. And he also really liked the cane and rattan chair due to its kind of shapes and lines. He kind of just thought that was kind of a really cool piece. Any reaction?
Yeah, that's good.
Between those things, like that gives me pieces that we can kind of keep and kind of run with those, but then I can kind of build on the look with the feedback that he gave me by finding other pieces that would kind of work in a space. Going into the kitchen space, I had a couple ideas for bench tops for him. So I was recommending to stick the bench against the wall just to save some space. But one option was a fixed option, so it would have kind of a waterfall design where the waterfall would actually include or encompass a little cabinet with some glass doors so that he could put some glassware or other kind of displayable things in there to give him a bit more storage and create kind of a fixed kind of functional space. Have some counter height stools under there, so a great space to kind of have some coffee, chat with a mate, have a meal, or, you know, play a board game with his son. Then the other option, which he was really keen on, was more of a foldable option that he could kind of get out of the way if he wanted to. I also looked into something that would be more of a mechanical solution, which I thought would be like really cool. However, I couldn't find a chippy to save my life who would take this on. So it would be something that I would have to either do myself, and also I couldn't find kind of the hardware. So there is a company in India that makes them. So I kind of bookmarked them for potential use in the future with another client of a similar need, or myself, because I thought it was kind of cool. For that back wall, I wanted to do something there to kind of help tie that into the kitchen. So in other words, we have kind of the corner of the kitchen and that back wall as kind of a united look. And then when you turn around, we have the other wall where the TV was going and the windows as kind of another view. So one option for that back wall was basically doing some paneling on the wall with a timber finish that would be similar with how we would refinish the cabinetry, so to kind of create that as one kind of monochromatic space. Whereas the other option was just kind of using some wallpaper, which I say wallpaper, and a lot of clients are like, wallpaper, like why would I ever want wallpaper? But wallpaper is a great way to bring in some texture and some you know, excitement and interest into the space.
Not convinced, mate. Not convinced.
Yes, it will date. Yes, you will get tired of it in about 7 years, but I think anybody's gonna get tired of a space in 7 years. You're gonna wind up redecorating anyway, and if you do go to sell the space, yes, you're gonna have to do something about it, but you're gonna have to do something with the space anyway. So it's like, you might as well, my philosophy is, enjoy the space you're living in, do it up the way you like, because when you sell it, you're gonna have to fix it up to sell it anyway.
Do they have wallpaper with beers on it? Like dogs? Beers and dogs? Wallpaper with beer, with a beer and a dog. That'd be good. Oh.
Anyway, tangent, back from the tangent. Anyway, so one of the options I suggested was this 60s graphic looking kind of wallpaper that had the nice kind of green tones in it as that first direction, or that suggested we refinish the cabinets in more of a green. And I thought this would really work well, because in later meetings he had let me know that he was actually a big fan of funk music. And I was kind of like, why didn't you tell me this in the first meeting?
Mate, that is amazing. Oh, I've got some ideas. Oh, this finally got interesting.
So I wanted to kind of skew the design to be a bit more retro and a bit more, you know, 70s mod. So having this paper would kind of add a lot of that vibe into the space. Like as soon as you walk in, like, wow, that's kind of a different look. And I gave him a couple more options just to kind of give him a range and kind of test his boundaries. But this is the one that he really loved and wanted to go with. So I thought, cool.
Yeah, the circles. Schmicko. Hold on. Did you do all that in your first meeting? I'm getting a little confused. I thought you said you found out about funk music later on.
Oh yeah, good call out. He wanted to start in the living area and wanted to wait to pay for the kitchen work until later. So I had done a couple rounds of kind of work with him, and that's when kind of the whole nugget about funk music came out.
Righto, I get it. So it's not always clear cut between these steps.
No, it's not.
Gotcha.
He also admitted to having a bit of a record collection. I was thinking about kind of a sideboard that would kind of fit under where the TV would go, but that kind of shifted into, okay, that needs to be able to hold some records. So I found a really cool piece that would work well for him. Clean lines, you know, nothing that would kind of take a lot of attention away, whereas we could do something a bit more different for the bar area, which would be over on the left-hand side, and that would be a higher piece that would, you know, take the eye up a bit, give an opportunity to have a bit of a table lamp to shed some ambient light, and have a piece of art above that. Then it was kind of just getting down to brass tacks on specific recommendations on specific pieces. So we did kind of land on this lounge chair from Beau Concept, and I went and found some fabric samples that I thought he would like. One, my favorite, was called this kind of Bloodstone.
Bloodstone. So American, mate.
You're an American too, you yank!
Shh. Chill out.
It wasn't like a boucle, which everybody seems to be doing now, but it did have a really rich kind of texture that felt really good on the hands, and it was in this kind of reddish brown, which kind of went with that whole 70s vibe. And then the other option was, you know, if you're gonna do it, just go full on burnt orange corduroy. I mean, go for it. He also really loved the Vittoria sofa, which, due to its kind of simplified shape, so very kind of modern, and how it had that kind of, not tufting, but how it had kind of the sewing in that kind of made it give this kind of grid pattern kind of look. And also the back and the arms are kind of like the same height, which I thought was kind of a nice kind of functional thing too, because if you had people over and then they're kind of milling around in the kitchen area, somebody could kind of lean on the back of the sofa or even kind of sit on the back of the sofa and it wouldn't look odd.
Just demonstrating for you.
That's really not necessary. The sofa's not the right... Far out. And that's where we're at with this project, so give me a like or a comment below, subscribe for more to kind of see what happens in the end. Stay tuned, take care, see you later, bye.
Those are really interesting.